Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie, and I'm currently a rising fourth year at the University of Virginia. I am a applied statistics major and a data science minor. And I have my LinkedIn down in the description if you're interested in asking any questions after this recording, or if you just like to connect. So my dashboard here is called A Dive into Gender Equality and Economic Growth, and it focuses on the SDGs 5 and SDG 8. And this dashboard was created using a Shiny app in RStudio. And yeah, let's dive in. So, just to introduce the topic here, gender equality and economic growth are two of the most closely watched markers of national development. And they're both very much at the core of the UN's 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. So, as that deadline approaches, how evenly progress has been shared matters just as much as how much progress has been made. So global averages, however, can often mask a different reality. So a rising worldwide median GDP or a falling worldwide median gender inequality index, also known as GII, can occur even while the gap between the best and worst performing countries stays wide or even grows. So this dashboard looks at the global data between the years 1990 and 2023 to ask whether progress on gender inequality, which is SDG 5, and economic growth, SDG 8, is actually shared across countries and regions, or if it's merely concentrated among those who are already ahead of the curve. So, this is our research question here. So, is the gap between the top and bottom performing nations in GII and GDP narrowing or widening over time? And how, if at all, do a country's economic output and its level of gender inequality move together? So just to touch briefly on each SDG. So SDG 5 is gender equality, and it is tracked with the Gender Inequality Index, also known as GII, which is a composite measure of reproductive health, empowerment, and labor market participation. So GII ranges from 0, which means no inequality between genders, to 1, which is the maximum inequality. So actually a falling GDP number would represent improvement. So for SDG 8, it's for decent work and economic growth, and it's tracked with the National Gross Domestic Product, also widely known as GDP, and it's a commonly used measure for a country's productive capacity and economic development. So GDP is shown on a log scale throughout, since national economies span several orders of magnitude. So why would we want to look at them together? SDG 5 and SDG 8 are often discussed as mutually reinforcing. So what does that mean? It means that broader economic opportunity is thought to support gender equality and vice versa. So this dashboard kind of visualizes how these two indicators have moved together and apart across countries and time. So for this first visualization here, it's a regional spread and it compares two different years. So it is a side-by-side box plot, and each box summarizes the distribution of countries within a region for a given year. And the box in the middle spans across the box spans the middle 50% of countries, and the line inside is the regional median. So it basically just gives you the five-number summary in statistical terms. And to compare the two years side by side here, you have year A, which is the teal color, and year B, which is the amber color. And to adjust the years, all you have to do is click and select the year that you want, and it will adjust accordingly. Same thing for year B. And you can also switch the variable, which is so you can either look at gender inequality index, or you can look at a GDP. All right, and you can see these dots here, which are the outliers. And this is actually interactive. So you can hover over a specific box and you can see the specific five number summary here. All right, so you can see that boxes that move together and shrink between the 2 years suggest that these regions are converging, and the boxes that stay far apart suggest that the gap is actually either persisting or widening. Righty, and it's important to remember that a falling GII represents improvement here. See all the different regions. We have East Asia and Pacific, Europe and Central Asia, and et cetera, et cetera. So visualization 2 is actually an animated scatter plot between GDP and gender inequality over time. And again, each dot represents one country, and they are color categorized by the regions here. right here in the legend, and you can adjust the animation year range. So you can, if you want to look at a specific decade, all you have to do is just drag it to whatever you want to look at. And then let's say you want to focus on a specific region, then all you have to do is click here and then get rid of whatever like region that you're not interested. But for the purposes of this recording, we're just going to look at all of them. And we're going to drag this year range to the widest it can be. And the visualization will default to just include all the regions. So that is something to be considered here. All you have to do is press play. And you can see how these countries move across time. If you want to speed up the process here, you can just drag it manually. You can see where the year changes right there. And so for our third visualization, it is a country rank over time. So it ranks every country by the gender inequality index each year, and rank 1 is the lowest inequality that year, and it also traces the selected country's ranks over time. So a line moving upwards would mean that the country is closing the gap with the most gender equal countries in the world, and a line moving downward would mean the opposite. Okay, again, you may select the country shown right here. And you may also control the year range, and it will adjust accordingly. So sometimes a specific country might not have data for certain time periods, which is totally normal. So you will just see that line cut off right there. I'm just going to drag it to the entire thing here. And again, you can also hover over and see specific ranks or the GII number for a specific year. And you can see that they are color coordinated as well. And there will be a legend down here so you can see which country you're looking at. So for visualization 4, it shows the movement between inequality tiers. So countries are grouped here into low, medium, and high tiers based on their GII for year A and year B. So each flow would trace where countries are starting, or where countries in the starting tier ended up. So a thick teal line moving from high down to low means that many countries like improved substantially, and a thick red flow moving the other way would suggest the opposite. So a thick gray flow means the tier mostly held onto the same countries. So this visualization looks at the gender inequality index only, and note that year A will always be on the left and year B will always be on the right here. So again, same thing as before, you can select what year you want to change it to, and since it's only looking at gender inequality index, you will only be able to select that variable. But you can also hover over and see more specific numbers, and also whether it's labeled as low, medium, or high. All right, so what are our findings here? So, taken together, so these four visualizations describe the same question just from various angles. So, visualization 1 shows whether regions as a whole are converging or staying apart on a given indicator between 2 points in time. Visualization 2 shows how individual countries' GDP and GI have moved together or diverged year by year. Visualization 3 strips away raw values and shows relative standing. So that's like whether a country is gaining or losing ground compared to the rest of the world, regardless of how the world overall is trending. And visualization 4, which is right up here, shows that or makes that movement literal, which tracks how many countries actually cross from one gender inequality tier to another between two separate years rather than staying where they started. So an important note is that this dashboard describes patterns and associations in the data. So it does not test or establish causality. So any apparent relationship between GDP and GII could reflect many other factors, which could include, but are not limited to, policy choices, regional context, measurement differences, or other like cultural contexts as well. So it should not be read as evidence that GDP growth alone drives inequality or vice versa. It is merely something that could be used to consider. So reaching the 2030 targets for both SDG 5 and SDG 8 likely require attention to countries and regions where the gap to the best performers remains largest, rather than relying on, average aggregate global process to reach everyone, especially those that have shown less improvement in GII and GDP compared to their counterparts. So multilateral support, institutional capacity building and policies aimed directly at gender inequality all remain relevant alongside economic growth. So, with only a few years left before 2030, closing these gaps and not simply just raising the global averages will determine whether this goal can actually be reached. Course, and here are my data sources here. For GDP, it was the data was came from the World Bank via our World in Data. For the Gender Inequality Index, it was the UNDP Human Development Report. It was also via our World in Data. And regions were assigned using the World Bank region classification, which is the countryside coding package if you're interested in the coding aspect of this dashboard. Yeah, so that's pretty much it here. I will also link the website in the description down below so you can look at it yourself. You can look at the different visualizations, and since they're all interactive, you can feel free to focus on certain regions or certain countries or a certain year range if it has those options right there. Yeah, thank you so much and have a good one.